Okay, thanks again for staying with us on the program this morning on ITV. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your dedication and passion towards TMI. Okay, yesterday, 43 new ministers were inaugurated with their portfolios eventually unveiled. 2 days earlier or a day earlier, there was a retreat where President Muhammadu Buhari told them what he expected of them. There should be teamwork, information sharing. It's not a tea party. This is about Nigeria. It's about living up to the expectations of Nigerians, especially against the background of the last election, the 2019 election, which of course gave birth to a new tenure for the present administration. So today on the program, we'll do a retrospect into what inspired, what impact made in the last dispensation, because we had some of the current crop of ministers as part of the first tenure of Mr. President. As a matter of fact, about 14 of them returned. Barrister Babatunde Raji Fashola and a host of others returned. So we're looking at what's the performance like in the last dispensation, and what should we expect now that we're here now with the new crop of ministers. There's been some rejigging. Some ministries that were seen to be too large have been cut down, particularly having works, power, and housing together. That's been cut now. We have a new minister in charge of power, who I understand is an electronics engineer. We'll talk about all of that in the course of the discussion. Remember, you can watch us live on all our platforms. On our website at www.itvradionnigeria.com, and then you can also watch us on YouTube. Go to our YouTube page and follow the program live there, as well as on our Facebook page. Once again, let me thank a panelist. Barrister David Maduku is a former PRO NBA Benin branch. I hope I got that right. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, my pleasure. Glad to be here.
We also have Barrister Felix. Barrister Felix, thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning, my honor.
And of course, Pastor Barrister Jimmy Osageda. He was a PDP House of Assembly contestant in Ego local government in the last general elections. We're glad to have you join us on the program.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so let me start from my extreme left, Barrister David Maduku. First tenure with the ministers, what's your assessment in terms of impacts? Are there specific individuals who we can single out or haven't done well? And of course, getting a second opportunity to lap up on their achievements in the first tenure. What are your thoughts?
Oh, right. Straight ahead, I will tell you, and I believe it's a reflection of the feelings of Nigerians, that in the first tenure, there was a total failure in the power sector. It totally failed. There are a plethora of reasons for that, I suppose. A lot of people have advocated that that ministry should be unbundled, which it has been now. And you did mention just a few minutes ago the qualification of the new Minister for Power. We only want to hope that it should be somebody that can apply himself. We all know, it's not a secret, that the three monsters of generation, transmission, and distribution of power is something that we need an expert, a man who has the know-how, technical and otherwise, to run, to deliver to Nigerians. We're talking of megawatts here and there. We've not been able to generate the adequate megawatt, at least for the majority of Nigerians to enjoy that sector of power. That's been a total failure. Again, you take a cursory look at the security chiefs. They have also failed. I would advocate total overhaul of security apparatus vis-a-vis the headship of the different organizations.
Okay.
There's been total failure. Nigerians have been very insecure in the last 4 years. and it's still spilling into this second tenure. We are speaking facts here, and we are being very direct and very real. And I believe I want to elucidate the minds of Nigerians here. It is a sector that the President and Commander-in-Chief should, seriously look at, because the primary duty of government, as we know, is the security of lives and property of the citizens. So if you cannot fulfill that primary obligation to the citizenry, then you really have no point being there. So that is what I think, that we have had failures there. Then you take a quick look at a sector like transport. To be fair, I have my reservations about the person of Rotimi Amaechi, but that will not affect my, looking at what he has done. I think he has brought fair gains to the transportation industry. Okay. Especially in the revolutionized, what you call it now, locomotive train sector. We've seen what the effort he has put in the last 4 years. I think they are modest and they are good, and they are something that should be built upon. Yes, we know that most of the ideas for the train was brought by President Goodluck Jonathan. Yeah. But I would say fairly and squarely that he has built on that, and that he ought to be given a chance to consolidate on that. So let's see what he has to do this next 4 years. You have other persons like Ehanire, our own Ehanire from Edo State, who was, I think, Minister of State then, back then. Yeah. But I think he's the full Minister now of Health. Yeah. And so he's a medical doctor by qualification. And I think he has to prove his mettle now. I believe he came strongly from the President himself on recommendation. So we'll see what he can do in that regard. Now, another very important key sector is petroleum. Petroleum gives me a bit of worry. The name I see there is not too familiar. No, sorry, Timothy Silva is the Minister of State. Yes, of petroleum. I didn't see a substantive minister.
So that makes Mr. President
for petroleum. Yes. I noticed that. Yes. Yeah, I didn't see a substantive minister for petroleum. Now, Timothy Silva also gives me cause for concern, because I know he's a seasoned politician, but I do not know how he's going to apply himself, because petroleum is another key sector that we need to revamp and revive in this country. So I do not really know. I pray that he'll be able to apply himself in that sector, properly, because these are the key sectors we need to revamp and revive in order for our economy to grow.
Absolutely.
Yes. Now we go to other bills like budget and finance and all that. I don't know whether the persons in those sectors are with due respect to them, are qualified enough. I think we should look for round pegs for round holes. I want to just quickly refer to the tenure of a person like Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who I know was assertive and knew what she was doing. I think we need people in that mode, more of such persons in this government.
Let me pause it there. Mr. Felix is the assessment by some analysts is that in the first tenure, the promises made, or some of them, if not majority of them, were not kept. Would you say it was due largely to the ministers Mr. President had, or it was more of leadership deficit on the part of Mr. President?
I think looking at the performance of the ministers, having a very retrospective view of the performance, first one must have to understand the manifesto of the President when he was coming into board. His manifesto was centered around 4 basic things: economy, security, corruption, and what have you. So looking at the performance, I have my very, very large reservation about the performance. One cannot say in the last 4 years, because it took Mr. President about 6 months to be able to put on. When he was formulating the cabinet, one expected that he was going to bring laws, gods to the table. At the end, we'll have maximum performance. But personally, I have been so disappointed in the performance of the ministers. Looking at the president himself, one will understand that, with all due respect to him, he has not been able to give good leadership you know, what makes a government to move are not necessarily ministers. It is the body movement of the chief executive, who is the chief formulator of all the policies. Where it is what they say in him that makes them to sit tight to say, yes, I must deliver. You know, I've not seen in the last 4 years Mr. President has sacked any minister for lack of performance. That already shows a lack of capacity on his part and lack of will to be able to pioneer the affairs of the country. You know, looking at all the ministry one by one, with all due respect, the only minister I can say that yes, I can give 50% to is Rotimi Amaechi, transportation. Okay. Yes, one can see some of the innovation he brought, infrastructure. One will be able to know this guy knows what he's doing. But if you look at the portfolios of all the ministers, you look at their background, where they came from, you would not expect them to do magic. Okay. For example, Minister of Education, Adamu, who is a journalist. You know, one cannot expect him to do magic in the education sector. Yeah. If I want the major sector, one of the major area ministry in the past 4 years that has achieved nothing is education. One has not seen any policy on education to improve the standard of education, you know, to encourage basic education. One has not seen it. So I cannot say that Adamu has performed. In the area of information, this is the area I like very well. You know, for you to assess a government, you must be able to understand how information are decimated, what you hear. The only achievement Lai Mohammed has achieved is the issue of fake news. That's the only thing he has achieved. We talk about the area of Franklin Wike Jr. These are the men, when they give information, you understand what is happening in the government. So I can say that also looking at all the ministries, for example, the justice sector, where most of us came from, the Malami, I cannot say that he has achieved anything. You know, I cannot talk about his reform in the area of judiciary right now, his policies to encourage, to improve conformation. I cannot say that now this is what he has done to encourage that, the justice system in the country, we have the fast track the justice system. Okay. Nothing. Okay. One cannot say that now this is the only way that what he has brought on board as a Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation. Okay. But the only achievement we can say that, he said he has achieved is corruption, which ordinarily is not supposed to be. It's even the major duty when we have EFCC chairman there. Yeah. So you look at all the ministries, look at heads. For the past 4 years, one can understand the fact that there's nothing to show to this is what they have achieved in the area of health. We still have infant mortality every day. We still have people who are not able to afford basic health. So these are the issues we must talk about. Okay. You see, talk about, for example, now issue of the economy. You know, we are still talking about poverty. They have not been able to formulate the policy to take us away from poverty. There's poverty in the land. So we are hoping that this new minister will be able to, in all their policies, focusing on poverty alleviation, employment, infrastructure. That is our optimism.
There's been effort in terms of poverty. If you look at the Empire Initiative, the trader money, and the whatever. I
disagree with you totally. I disagree with you. Empower, you don't come to alleviate poverty, you came to encourage poverty. That is the truth. Because most of these people you are giving 30,000 naira a month cannot assist them in helping themselves or family. That is not helping them to alleviate. The way to alleviate poverty is you empower them. You empower them in all ramifications to be able to be independent. Okay. So as a youth, if you are not self-sufficient, if you cannot manage yourself, be able to achieve one or two things on yourself without depending on stipend from government, you cannot say that you have alleviated poverty.
Okay, I'll come back to you on that point. Barrister Jimmy Osagyede, what are your thoughts in terms of performances, in terms of achievements with the first tenure? And I asked a question a while ago about, was it largely as a result of ineffectiveness on the part of the ministers, or largely due to leadership deficiency in terms of piloting the affairs of the country?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Duke. The first thing I want to say is that the last administration did not meet up to the expectations of the generality of Nigerians, and it's obvious. I think the last administration came into power unprepared. The roads on, on a campaign of change without necessarily mapping out the manifestos in such a way that the people will benefit from it. At the time the last administration came on board, there were so many things that the administration before Buhari administration has started doing, that they were supposed to continue. But they apart from the continuation of the rail transport system, many of them were truncated. You see, number one, the president in his campaign and as a presidential candidate with people like Tinubu, Rotimi Amici, and the rest of them, they made a very solid promise that every unemployed Nigerian will be paid 5,000 naira every month. There's nobody who's not aware of that. They made a very solid promise that in 6 months, Boko Haram will be a thing of the past. And the president said all the corrupt people were going to be put behind bars. He didn't say if they are found guilty, because he is not concerned about the rule of law. There are so many things that he mentioned. So when they got to the office, Nigeria, you know, we had to wait for 6 months before we started, asking questions whether he would do what he promised, because it took him that long to form his cabinet.
Yeah.
Now, by and large, the security system, in Nigeria had deteriorated to the old time where civilization was still in the limbo. It's brutish now. If you are going from here to Lagos, in fact, you are not even sure if you get to Lagos. Apart from the sorry state of the roads, the kidnappers, they just come here and had a field day. If the president and his Minister of Defense and the service chiefs are serious about eradicating, these kidnappers and insecurity in the country, they can do it. If the willpower is there, it's possible. For instance, Sambisa Forest is a known location. Why don't you move a battalion and establish in the forest? Thank God for what the commissioner of police have done in Edo State now between Benin and Okada. The forest, there's no forest in the south, in the rainforest region, where a typical hunter in the village and the farmer does not know the length and breadth. How come somebody will be kidnapped and will be taken to the forest that belongs to other people? That is on the area of security. Now, for the rule of law, the solid foundation that can make a country to progress is rule of law.
Yeah.
In the last 4 years, the issue of the rule of law has been swept under the carpet. The president does not obey any court order, especially if it's not in his favor. Magu was rejected by the Senate, for instance, as a chairman of EFCC. He's still there. The man just does the things that suit his purpose without, taking the pulse of the people. How can you have a situation where, a court judgment, in the old time, for instance, you go before the king, in the traditional education system, and the king gives an order before the British system anyway. You dare not disobey, because that is the opinion of the hierarchy of the authority at that time.
Yeah.
Now the court, gives a judgment, and you do not agree. Malami, with due respect, who supervised the negligence and disobedience of the rule of law, is back again. That shows that the president wants to continue to ensure that the court will just go there and do their thing and nobody obeys. If he had removed Malani and put somebody else, then we'll say that, okay, now the man is listening to people. He wants, bring back the rule of law. Okay. He wants the people to be confident and the rest of them. If you look at the rail system, for instance, even though my colleague said, that we saw some marginal improvement during Rotimi Ameci's time. But if you want to do rail, you see, the best country in the world to do rail system is go to Japan. Is it China that is copying Japan that you are bringing to bring your railway system? As far back as 1920, Japan already had a subway, underground railway system. Okay. You see, people should know where to go to get the necessary infrastructure. Now, Nigeria should concentrate on stealing technology. You cannot transfer it. Nobody wants to give it to you. Yeah. That is that aspect of the rail. Then another aspect I want to look at is the educational system. In the last 4 years, we have had a lot of strike from the university, tertiary institutions. We have had issues where it doesn't really matter. Your level of education doesn't matter. The president wants to give you a job, wants to appoint you to any position. He just gives you the appointment. All those things, they should stop.
Can you substantiate that? That the president wants to give you a job or gives you an appointment.
The Minister of Education, who is a journalist,
okay,
in the past 4 years,
okay,
that's a round peg in the square hole. If you bring a seasoned educationist, you don't necessarily have to be a professor, or if there are people, seasoned educationists or somebody who has done well in that sector.
Yes,
you bring him. He can do very well. If you have somebody who knows his own as a Minister for Education, the disparity that has been outlawed by the court in the admission into federal institutions
especially in the unity schools, where if you are from the south, you have to score up to 60-70% before you can get admission, and then it's just like 20 or 25% from the north. All those disparities are forbidden by the constitution.
Okay.
There's a court order, and the Minister of Education does not see anything wrong in that.
Okay.
So there are still, there are still a lot that this current administration will have to remedy.
Okay, if you just join us, it's still TMI Thursday, retrospecting into the first tenure of President Muhammadu Buhari with his crop of ministers, and then making projections and setting agenda for the new ministers inaugurated yesterday. One of our own, Clem Agba, was also inaugurated yesterday as Minister of State for Budget and Economic Planning. Of course, there is a substantive minister in that ministry, but we'll get to that point. Gentlemen, I want us to look at the issue of the fight against corruption, which was a major plank of the present administration. Where are we, by your assessment, as far as that is concerned? Let me begin again with Pastor David Maduku.
Well, the fight against corruption, in my own very fair view, is to a large extent a charade. It's not real. It is tainted with political motives. I've always maintained my stand when I speak publicly, especially in forums like this, that the leader of a country or an organization has to start leadership with himself or herself. And so leadership in its purest form ought to come from our president and commander-in-chief, in its purest form. And when you say you have as one of your main agenda the fight against corruption, it is naturally expected that it should come from you. Now, I'll just give one example, which I keep giving every time. Just one. You will know that there's no sincerity of purpose in this fight when you still have an illegal notion and fact of something called security vote, that all the governors, including the president himself, you give them every month. A leader, a president or a governor that comes in and says, I want to make my security vote accountable. Then you are seeing sincerity clear of purpose through that. But you see, anytime you mention this thing, even as I'm speaking, I know many of them are uncomfortable. Because the truth is, that is where the huge chunk of our natural resource, our taxpayers' money goes. And what do we see? Let's speak the hard truth here. What do we see? We see that maybe once in 6 months, 18 Hilux van, some other motorcycles, the commissioner of police is called. They call a media house. We are hereby presenting this to you, blah, blah, blah. And that's what we see. And that's the end. Make it accountable.
Security vote.
Yes, make it accountable. Then when we see a president or a governor that comes and says that, then we will know we have started seeing a leader with sincerity of purpose. So before you start talking of you are fighting this, and the moment the person moves from party A to political party B, you say your sins are forgiven. What is that? That's a charade. That's a charade. There is no sincerity in the fight against corruption. Yes, some people have been arrested. Many of you, even some of the ministers that we're talking about, many of them have their petitions lying in EFCC. Many, a lot. I don't want to mention names. But nothing has been done. Even the chairman of political parties and all, we know all of them. They all have the petitions lying there. But nothing has been done. So now you make your fight selective. That selectiveness already has made people to lose confidence in the process.
Okay, let me pause it there. Pastor Felix, the fight against corruption, a major plank of promise by this present administration. Promises have been made. The EFCC on its part, for example, has come out several times to talk about the gains recorded in this fight against corruption. People say, or some people say, it's not business as usual. Why it looks like not much is being done it's because corruption is fighting back. I want to get your thoughts along those lines.
You know, some of these comments are very, very ridiculous. You know, ridiculous in this point that when you put it under the basis of test of logicality, they cannot stand the test of time. You know, one of the reasons why many of us came out openly to vehemently campaign for Mr. President was because we believe that he has the capacity to fight corruption. We believe that corruption is the bane of our development. We believe that with corruption, we're able to fight corruption, we'll get our economic policy right, we'll get every other sector right. That was our belief. But to be very sincere, to be very, very sincere, I cannot totally, you know, condemn the president that, oh, he's actually harboring corruption. I don't want to say that, but I also feel that there are so many saboteurs in the government. And again, because Mr. President is not fully in control of his government, they use his name, they use everything under his office to manipulate the process. So in all fairness, the fight against corruption has been a charade. It has been a charade because nobody has ever, I do not know if there has ever been a conviction. You can't be talking about fighting the corruption when you have not been able to convict one person. But all we have seen is media trial.
There's one Reverend Jolly Inyame, I think former governor of Taraba State, was convicted under this present administration.
That's just one of the...
but that's a plus. That's a plus.
Under the former president, we saw reconvictions of people. People were being convicted, political office holders who were convicted. So we believe that under the era of Mr. President, they would have achieved higher fight against the corruption. Also, if you look at it, to me, I can say that the majority of the fight against the corruption has been a case of something. For example, the case of the current minister of Niger Delta, Babio, we saw how the case was withdrawn from EFCC after he became to the party. So I do not think that if you want to fight corruption, you must fight from the judicial system. But what we have seen in the judicial system today is an attempt to intimidate the judiciary. Today, we now have the judicial arm of government who is being gashed, who is scared. So you cannot fight corruption without following due process. You cannot fight corruption without looking at having recourse to the rule of law. But today, we have a president who believes that his own discretion, his own power, his national interest in his own capacity can override the provisions of the rule of law. So the fight against corruption has not been fair, it has not been holistic, it has been one-sided. I have not seen that it has been done out of genuinity or out of honesty. So we believe that moving forward, the president must be able to sit down to understand the fact that I am the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, not the president of selected set of politicians. Not harboring people. Look at the case of Mena, for example. The case of Mena reached the fight against corruption with the president. Because it was a man who was sanctioned by the previous administration. You brought him back again. So what do you have to say? What do you have to tell the citizens that you are doing in fight against corruption? So in a nutshell, I am of the view that Mr. President must be able to send strong warnings to all his ministers, all his aides, and we must see realistic fight against corruption, not the one done through the media.
Okay. Mr. Jimmy Osagede, I've heard people say, well, the fight against corruption is selective and all of that. But even if it's selective, if the people in question or the people fingered in these corruption cases are actually culpable, is there anything wrong with that?
Well, the fact is very obvious to everybody. The way the president and his cabinet have gone about the fight against corruption shows that it's a witch hunt exercise. Because we have people with high-profile cases of corruption, people that EFCC itself had adjudged to have taken so much from the treasury, and they were arraigned before the court. My colleague mentioned one, Godswill Akpabio. Now, when Akpabio was arraigned, when it was being taken to court, he quickly decamped to APC, and that's the end. We have a long list of cases, of charges against Rotimi Amaechi. Amaechi is in APC, and nothing is being said about it. If you are fighting corruption and you have a sanctuary, a safe haven for those who are corrupt, that were in the opposition party,
alleged to be corrupt, because they've not been convicted.
Yes, to be corrupt in the other political party.
Yes.
Once they come to you, nothing happens. So your body language shows that no matter your level of corruption, once you come to our side, you are deemed to be free. at least for the next 4 years when the president, if he remains there. So the issue is that the fight against corruption is not transparent.
Okay.
EFCC does not have a free hand. The man that the Senate says is not qualified to run EFCC because Magu himself had cases against him, petitions against him. They say that you are not qualified to be the chairman of EFCC. Yeah. You are there. So if you have somebody who is unqualified by the Senate, I believe that the Senate has a collection of the best brains, so to say, from the 36 states of the country, including Abuja. They are there, and then what they say, the president just sweep it under the carpet. So that's not a good fight. So for corruption, the fight against corruption to succeed, the judiciary must be given a free hand. Okay. Those who are found guilty must be punished for it. Those who are being investigated, the investigation should reach conclusion. Okay. It should not be truncated. Okay. So the fight against corruption is just a whitewashing exercise. Okay, let's quickly
look at one major thing that ran through the first administration and is going to continue in this second tenure. Is Mr. President as the substantive Minister of Petroleum Resources. Ambassador David Maduku, could you give us a hint into that in your opening lines? What do you make of it? Because I've heard a lot of people make analysis and comments on this one. I don't know what's your take on this, Ambassador David.
Well, I think it's morally wrong to assume authority over that office while as President and Commander-in-Chief. The truth is, we have not legally tested the issue of the president perpetrating himself as the Minister of Petroleum. I personally tried it during the regime of President Obasanjo. I and some other colleagues, Dr. Mudiaga Oje, my learned senior in Warri, we took President Obasanjo to court. I remember then, I moved the motion for service, and we tried to test his non-appointment of a petroleum minister. We tried to test the resolve, but at some point the case got knocked off and all that. So we had revolutionaries like the late Gani Fawehinmi. I know if he was alive, most of these things would have been tested legally. There are a lot of issues the government
you started the process along with our people.
Yes.
But somehow, what happened?
Yes.
You got overwhelmed.
No, that wasn't fair. It got struck out. The case got struck out.
Okay, so it got struck out. You couldn't do anything?
No,
was that the end of it?
I've gone on appeal or some other
aspect of it.
Yeah, aspects of it. But I wasn't the facilitator, like I said. I was in that team. The facilitator was my learned senior, Dr. Paul Mudiaga Oje. But somehow along the line, we didn't go ahead with that. But what I'm trying to say is that we need more legal activism in Nigeria. We need more people testing the waters, because some of these actions of government, you see, are things that we can use the engineering, social engineering of the law to correct. Okay. We still have some good elements like President Femi Falana and some other lawyers that still test these things. That is why we have the law, and that is why you can never ever say that national security or national interest is above the rule of. You can never say that. It was unfortunate that sort of statement was coming from our president. Okay. It's never that way. Otherwise, we'll be going back to the Hobbesian state of nature, where life is nasty, British, and short. You can't say that. The rule of law always comes first. Let me quickly just gloss through something I missed out on the ministers. I remember Chris Ngige was Minister of Labour, and he has been returned back as Minister of Labour. Okay. I think that's another error. Because Chris Ngige did not do well, in my own opinion. It's ascribable to me, not ITV. Okay. He did not do well as Minister of Labour, because if you look at the labour issues for the workers in Nigeria, right now we are still dragging on the issue of 30% minimum. We are still dragging, and we have even moved past that stage, because 30,000 naira cannot sustain an average family now as we are speaking. So that's another failure I overlooked. The issue of Niger Delta, Akpabio and Keyamo, a lawyer, I think this is an opportunity. They are both Niger Deltans, incidentally. I think it's an opportunity for them. I don't want to go into their qualification to run that ministry, but it's an opportunity for them to use their office to do something meaningful for Niger Delta people.
Now, how with that, what's the workability of these two guys? Remember the fact that at some point, Festus Keyamo was the EFCC prosecutor in the case involving Senator Godswill Akpabio.
It's unfortunate. It's what we call anticlimax. It's come to an anticlimax. They both found themselves somewhere.
Yes.
Now, Professor Keyamo has the charisma of youth with him. I don't agree generally with most of his stand, but I think he's a dynamic young man that can bring dynamism and progress to that ministry. Godswill Akpabio also, even when he was in PDP, had been an advocate for growth and development of the Niger Delta.
Okay.
I just hope that they can consolidate on this and use their office to make progress for Niger Delta.
Okay.
So can I just make a comment?
Yes. I'll come to you, Mr. Felix here.
I believe very strongly that the lack of integrity is at play in the present relationship between Keyamo and Akpabio. You see, a man of integrity, I say this with due respect to both of them, a man of integrity who believes in his heart, and as an erudite scholar, a senior advocate, you believe and you have said that this man is corrupt, and you are prosecuting him in court to ensure that he pays the price of corruption.
Okay.
Now, because of the gains of office, you have agreed to be his subordinate in the same ministry. A man of integrity would not accept that. That is to say that at the time you were prosecuting him, you were just playing to the gallery. You didn't know what you were doing. It's just to, to placate the public. You see, these are the issues we are talking about in the fight against corruption. These are the things that we are talking about. So it's just whitewashing. That's just the little I want to add.
All right. But Mr. Felix here.
The first thing I have to say is that, looking at all the ministers, most of them are very capable. But I think Mr. President made a very big mistake by not putting some of them who would have done better in some ministry to be there. For example, now I was expecting a man from Cross River, Jeddah Agba, to be Minister of State for Petroleum, or our own Clement Agba here. Because these guys, they have had years of experience in the oil and gas sector.
Okay.
So with the worth of experience that they have, one expected that they would have brought it on to bear in the pioneering of the petroleum industry. But bringing a man like Timmy Presipa, who is a politician, the Minister of Petroleum or Minister of State for Petroleum is not supposed to be for a politician. It's supposed to be for a technocrat who understands what this is all about. Because if all the policies you are making are basically based on political experience, you won't be able to have a firm control of your ministry. Yeah. Yesterday, I listened to Rick Besola, the former governor of, his appointment was one of the aberrations that
Minister of Interior.
In the sense that I understood a man who failed woefully. The records are very clear as a governor who could not pay salary, giving such a very big ministry, Minister of Interior. I listened to his speech yesterday when he said very well that the man was very honest, and I appreciate him for that. That he doesn't know anything, know much about Interior. What type of leadership is such a man going to give? Because leadership is for you to know the way, show the way, and go the way. Yeah. But right now, you do not have that leadership capacity to be able to know that this thing is wrong. Bro, this thing you are suggesting, I don't think this thing can work like this. That is what makes you the head of the ministry. But what I want to have right now, we are having people who do not understand things about their ministry. For example, like we talked about labor and employment, a medical doctor. This guy doesn't have experience from the labor background. So what is he going to use in negotiating? What is he going to achieve? You also look at, for example, now, we've talked about education before. Yes. If you look at Niger Delta, in fact, I first embarrassed when I saw, my very good friend with respected Keyamo, Minister of State for Niger Delta. He's a minister. That's the most important thing to him right now. But I think with his capacity during the election, with the way he managed the information, with the way he handled, I would have expected to Minister of Information. That's what I would have expected him to begin. But what we see is for me being a junior minister under the Niger Delta. So I think in the allocation of portfolio, Mr. President made a very big mistake. In fact, I am embarrassed and I'm ashamed and disappointed that he still made himself Minister of Petroleum. That shows that the president does not trust anybody. You know, when a leader don't trust followers, there's a problem. Because leadership first, you must be able to trust the capacity of everybody that is working with you. You must be able to trust the capacity of people you are governing. He made a statement before when people were quoting his non-appointed minister. He said, I want to appoint people that I know. That knowledge, is it political knowledge he's talking about, or knowledge of their capacity that he's talking about? So from all you have done right now, that is knowledge of their political capacity, not knowledge of what they can do. You know, I also looked at the terms of reference for the chief of staff. You know, I saw a chief of staff who was a mini president. All the ministers right now have to be reported to the chief of staff. It means right now, the chief of staff is automatically the de facto chief executive of Nigeria. That's what we have right now. He's the one that will give directives. Most of those files will not even get to the president because he can give approval from the terms of reference that will give it to him. So these are issues we must continue to talk about. My very senior learned friend here talked about issue of, you know, testing some things legally in court. If you ask me that now, most of us here we are activists. Most of us are quiet because we have realized that when court judgment, court orders are not maintained, you know, going to court is the main exercise of futility. For example, the indigenes of the Federal Capital Territory went to court to direct Mr. President to appoint somebody from FCT as a minister based on the provision of the constitution that made FCT a state. There was a Federal High Court judgment, there was a Court of Appeal judgment that was never appealed. But at the end, the president still refused. That's why the court order. So we have seen plethora of court, for him, yeah. Yes, we have seen plethora of court cases that the president has started. So no people like us going to court to go and tell this thing at waste of time. For example, when the current CJ was appointed, a young lawyer went to court to go and challenge his qualification that he's not capable to be a CJ. What happened to him? They did not only strike out, they didn't only dismiss the matter. The young lawyer was sanctioned with 10 million compensation fine. Not only that, he was recommended to LPDC for sanction. So since such a vendetta, since such a wishing for a young lawyer, so those of us who are very young, who see has so much to achieve, we're very careful in what we do.
You know, I'm a trend. The state will not remain like that. Don't remain like that.
Certainly.
There's a trend that I'm worried about.
Okay.
In the appointment of ministers. Even though I am one of those who criticize those who we see as not overly qualified to run some ministry.
Yeah.
But there are instances from developed countries where, you know, people who were not graduates, you know, were able to run their affairs by assembly technocrats.
The best hands, the best brains together. Okay.
But there's a trend in Nigeria that I'm very worried about. And the trend leads me to ask this question. Why is it that the Minister of Federal Capital Territory is always from the north? You know, right from Jeremiah Hussaini's time, if you look at, you know, the trend. Now, why also is it that the president, just like the other panelists have said, the president wants to be the Minister for Petroleum Resources? You know, those are the kind of things that, you know, I'm very worried about.
But it's not the first time a president will be Minister of Petroleum Resources.
No, I say, why is the trend?
Yes.
Why is the trend there?
Okay.
Why is the trend there? Now your petroleum industry is moribund. You know, shamefully, Nigeria, as one of the largest producers at the time, was about the 6th producer of oil, you know, of crude oil in the world. Nigeria has you know, 2 of the best quality of crude oil in the world, Bonny Light and I don't remember the other name. Nigeria oil is sought after by international community. You cannot refine your products, and there's somebody who is proud. You know, I think the enormity of the office of the president is enough for him to detach himself from being a minister for, you know, petroleum resources in Nigeria. It's a shame that you export the raw materials and then you use more than, you know, a chunk of the national resources to import, you know, the refined product. It is very shameful. Those are the things that Nigeria should look into. And then the infrastructure, if you look at the people that have been appointed into different ministries, I know, for instance, thanks to MBA and NMA, because NMA will not allow somebody who is not a doctor, medical doctor, to be minister for health. MBA will not allow, in fact, it's practically impossible for somebody who is not a lawyer and the senior possible. You know, the other ministries, yes. anything goes. Anything goes. That's what we are seeing right now.
Okay.
The Ministry of Transport, as it were, is responsible for roads. Let the roads be revamped. The Power Ministry responsible for light, let electricity be made available. It is possible. I keep saying this thing everywhere I go. It is possible.
That's a ministry that now has a square peg in a square hole.
We hope so.
Yes.
You know, the square peg, we are talking about a requisite experience.
Yes.
But I believe that it will not be so novice to the extent that it will not know that the wrong connections and the rest of them are being made.
Okay.
So all these things that, all the major infrastructures that we need, road, electricity, water, if they are there, the country will be on a path of development.
Okay. Thanks again for staying with us on the program TMI Thursday. And now quickly, gentlemen, a major issue of concern is the space for people to express themselves, criticize government, go on protest, to press for demands and things like that. There's a feeling that that space is being squeezed out. A major fallout on that is what we saw recently, where Senator Ike Ekweremadu was assaulted in Germany. I also heard of another incident that happened in the UK. What do you make of these? Because when the people don't have the space to express themselves, criticize government, I think there is a problem.
Yes, I agree with you thoroughly. Not only Ekweremadu's case can be looked at from different perspectives. You look at the case of somebody like Showore or Sahara Reporters, although we talked about revolution, and we also have different views on that.
Okay.
But generally, people should have the freedom of expression, the right to express yourself. And we like you said, you rightly said, that right has and is still being stifled in this country. Goodluck Jonathan, before he left, said, you people will know the freedom you enjoyed under me after I leave. And I think that those words are becoming very clear and real in our lives today. It is a notorious fact that even it's going to a point that we should know the way we even talk here, so that when we drive here, we are not accosted at the gate. It's getting to that stage. So it's very unfortunate. What you are saying, these are live and real issues happening now in our time. It's very unfortunate that these things are happening. There is freedom of expression that is guaranteed. It's a fundamental right under our constitution. People should be able to express them. People should be able to be free to form associations and join associations the way they like, insofar as those associations are legal.
Okay.
But that is not what we are seeing happening today. I think the government of the day should have a second look at this, because individual rights and liberties are being seriously challenged and stifled. People are being arrested arbitrarily. Like we said, from the beginning, Mr. President himself should have a rethink. The legal people in the presidency should have the courage to tell him the truth. I think they are not telling him the truth, or either they are telling him he's not listening. To tell him the truth that national interest and national security can never ever be over and above the rule of law. That is where we are getting everything wrong. If we can get that right, most of the other things will fall in place. I don't want to also go into all the debacle and the ignominy of the removal of the former CJN. That was a very shameful act. It may have one or two bases for credibility that we will see, but generally the whole process was shameful. That was the head of a third arm of government. No matter what your allegation was, you would have used due process to remove him. And they just showed the inability to apply that due process in that whole charade. So my take, sir, is that there have been individual human rights abuses. It's going on. It's ongoing in the country. And it is something that we should look at. I want to appeal to judges that are sitting now to have the courage. We had a time, we had the golden era in the bench. The time of them Kari Esho, Chukwudifo Oputa, Obaseki. Those were the golden age. Men that could speak truth to power, and they will face you and tell you squarely. And I want to encourage our jurists now that they should please try as much as possible to return to that golden era, because that's what gives you pride as a member of the judicial community, and that is what also puts sanity in the system of the society, so that we can bring our society back to normalcy. Okay. Society is sick right now. We all need treatment.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Sarah, you want to take it off on that? Yes, yes.
Like what I keep saying, Nigeria will practice constitutional democracy. Democracy is based on the constitution,
Yeah.
following the provisions of the constitution. Constitution has given freedom of expression and the press. One thing we all enjoy in the former administration was the fact that most of us went to social media to say anything we want to say, even insult, and it may not be morally right, but I think it's legally okay. I want to reference my argument to what happened last week in Edo State here, where in the magistrate court where we went to Google Rescue, one of our colleagues, a senior lawyer from Edo State, senior lawyer, director in one state ministry, was arraigned in the magistrate court. What was the alleged offense? And he posted something on his Facebook wall regarding Edo State University Yamo, which was incorrect. It was defamatory. Issues of defamation are sorted in the court. You filed an action for the civil action. What did they do? They did everything. They brought press to magistrate courts trying to arraign him. So the NBA Benin got to know. We mobilized our members and we stormed magistrate court with our numbers. That was how we were able to rescue him, because the plan was to send him to prison. It was on Friday, so that they cannot. So thank God that the court granted him bail based on self-recognizance. Also, what am I trying to say? If a lawyer of such repute, a lawyer that people wrote to, a defender of the oppressed, a fighter of the repressed,
Doesn't make him above the law.
no, they don't make him above the law. But it's not a man could be so intimidated not to express himself again. What do you have to tell about the ordinary Nigerian?
Okay.
So I think this is one of the aspects we must all talk about, whether from the state level or federal level. People should be able to express themselves. Oh, if what they are saying is not right, you can have counter. That is why you have chief press secretary. You have media aides to counter all the lies.
Okay.
In fact, people should be free to criticize government or individual. One of the major things every public officer to understand is that criticism is a part of governance. You must be able to look at the good and the bad and juxtapose. Pointing argument to what happened in Germany, it was very embarrassing and shameful that such an incident took place outside the country. I watched it, I was embarrassed. What was the agitation? What was the reason for that? I saw many Nigerians justifying and celebrating it. It's wrong. What is wrong is wrong. I keep saying that the Igbos are not ready for presidency. Why are they not ready? A man who has attained such echelon of political career, who they ought to be looking up to as a future presidential material, could be treated in such a manner. What hope do they have to have any point of presidency? That is the lack of unity they have always had, that have never been able to get one formidable force. The Fulani man will never do that to anybody, no matter how bad. The Hausa man will not do that. The Yoruba man will not do that. That is where they are missing it. So what happened there is not just a shame to Nigeria, it's a shame to the Igbos, which they need to sit down themselves and retrospect and have a common ground or so. So what is happening today in the country today is a reason why lawyers, one of the issues we are also having today is because most of the lawyers have become politicians. We are trained as lawyers to stand for what is right, what is fair, what is democratic, and what is constitutional. But today, people now interpret the law based on their political party. I remember what happened during the era of Mekadoka as the AG. How the NBA suspended him from the bar. But today, what we are having is we have an Attorney General of the Federation, we have a Minister of Justice who has worked against the interest of the NBA, who has worked in interest of the Constitution, who has worked against the interest of democracy, and nothing has been happening. And he still come to NBA conference to make comment that the rule of law supersedes, the national interest supersedes the rule of law. That's an insult to all of us. So I also think that the judiciary, they must learn to stand. I should be able to approach a judge to file an action knowing that the judge has the guts, he has the body, he has the will to give judgment without looking at who is involved. Yeah. I should be able to go on appeal to know that, the people who are sitting at the appeal there can give judgment against the government. Yeah. So when you create such platform for us to be able to challenge illegality, most of us are happy to challenge issues putting on the illegality and constitutional violation.
Okay.
I've listened keenly to. It's not an argument between us, but have a different view to the German incident. But let me start from home. Freedom of expression is guaranteed by the Constitution.
Absolutely.
That's why we are here now. We are talking about criticizing because it's our right. Yeah. Without criticism, the government will not be able to sit up. Because the government, for instance, is not aware of what is happening in the inner city. The people there, the journalists, the human rights crusaders will cry out and talk, address the press, and the government will now pay attention. We see it every day. Now, the incident in Germany should not be condemned in its entirety, because that is a different jurisdiction where it is part of their culture.
To protest.
To protest. Look at the Somali.
That was assault.
That was assault. Yes.
I listened to you.
Yes. Yes. Okay, go on. Just go on.
What happened? You can't say it's an assault because the chief of police have already released a report saying that no arrest was made because it was a protest. You understand? You are saying something that happened thousands of miles ago. You only saw it on social media.
Yes.
And you call it an assault.
Yes.
But the police who came to the scene, who saw when he was whisked away into a car to driver, did not see anything wrong in it because it's part of their culture. You understand? If it happened in Nigeria, all those guys will be behind back. Over there, you'll be petted with tomatoes, that is to show that you are unacceptable to the people. So having lived in Germany, for example, those number of years, you have been, you have imbibed the culture of hating those you feel are not doing the right thing. They were not going to kill him. They were going to teach him a lesson. They actually taught him. So the point I'm making is this: I'm not supporting molesting public officers or assaulting them.
Yeah.
But in Germany is a different jurisdiction.
Yeah.
In Germany, if you are corrupt, you can't walk freely on the streets. People don't walk and move around with siren. The same thing in other developed countries. But in Nigeria, a known criminal with a briefcase of hard currency that he cannot account for will have a long motorcade with siren, with security operative blowing around. You can't do it over there. You understand? There was a time the former president of I think Ivory Coast, he went to France.
Babo.
Yes, the same thing happened to him. That is to show that, you see, in spite of all the insulation you have in your country, all the protection that you have, as you come out, you have entered a civilized world where all those things you do back home are unacceptable. You understand? Some of these dignitaries, they have canceled their trip abroad. If your hands are clean, you go and see they welcome you. So it's not a question of whether the Igbos or these people will not do it. I believe that it is a reaction to their, to what is happening in Nigeria.
So it's a signal to political leaders or leaders in the country.
Yes.
All right, Pastor David, yes.
Just a quick reaction to his own.
Yes.
I'm going to react by asking a rhetorical question. It doesn't need an answer.
Okay.
Just a question.
Okay.
Agreed. My good learned friend here said that it is assault. And my other learned brother said
It's a protest.
it's a protest.
Yes.
He also said it is part of their culture
Yes.
over there.
Yes.
My question now, which does not need answer, but which will answer everything, is that what culture do we now use to judge the incident in Germany? Their culture, or we here in Nigeria who are judging it, our culture? That's all. You don't need to answer it.
No, I will answer.
You asked the question.
We are using our Nigeria culture to judge German culture.
When we saw slaps on the man,
Yes.
we saw the man's shirt was torn,
Against our
and we
culture.
said that is foreign culture, and we should apply foreign culture.
Yes.
You don't need to answer.
And one point you need to understand about this argument is the fact that he was not assaulted because he was corrupt or because he did not perform. He was assaulted because he was wearing a cloth that divided Nigeria as a country. So what was their protest?
They say you ought to be an Igbo.
An Igbo and so their argument, their fight, their protest was not for the interest of their country. It was for their government.
Are you telling me from your the comfort of the street?
No, the fact.
Excuse me, that what you are saying here is a superior argument to the chief of police
In Germany.
in Germany who was at the scene.
The chief of police used their culture. We are saying the same thing.
Yes, because it happened.
Their culture.
Because it happened there.
Yeah, it happened there.
Yes.
I agree with you. I'm not arguing that.
Yes.
But we are saying we here now in Nigeria, what culture do we use to judge it?
You see,
That you slap a man, whatever happens. We say what German culture to
judge it.
Whatever happens in this our journey on
Yeah,
earth,
yeah.
we should learn from it. There's a lesson to learn from what happened.
Exactly.
What's that lesson?
Agreed.
What's the lesson?
That lesson
Yes.
is that you have to watch what you do in Nigeria, because once you leave the comfort of all this bloated security, there are people that probably will ask you, why did you do that?
There are people that would have done that too, that would have been celebrating. That's true.
Because it's confusing. This is the same man
Yes.
that helped your leader Nnamdi
Yes.
Kanu. He has advocated for his whatever his he has taken him close to the presidency and all that, was very instrumental to his getting bail from Amari.
Yes.
And it's the same man. It's confusing.
So it's a misplaced attack. It's a misplaced assault. Is that what you're saying?
Those guys are confused.
Every pair of friends
Yes.
who are quarreling have helped each other in the past.
Okay.
You understand? The point I'm making,
Yes.
it's not that, see, don't get me wrong, I don't support that.
Yes. Yes. I know that.
You understand?
I know that.
I don't support that.
Yes.
But what happened, one, the police says it was a protest. It's not my own statement. Police says it's a protest, no arrest.
According to
The
their
investigation is closed. Number two, it's part of their culture there. Even they use, he was.
But the man has come out to say he's forgiving them.
Yeah,
he
he
said,
probably
yes.
understand their culture now.
Yes,
You
he said he's
understand with
forgiving
tomatoes
them.
and all sort of things.
Egg, even eggs. I saw some pig eggs and all of that. All right, gentlemen, before we call it a wrap, the man, Ibrahim El-Zakzaky, the issue surrounding him has been very dramatic. I mean, from leaving Nigeria and going to India for medical attention, and then back to Nigeria. I don't get it all. I mean, it looks like this is an issue that needs to be addressed holistically so we can put it to rest. Do you see that rest or that end coming soon?
No, I don't, honestly. And it borders on the fact that our government uses the wrong method to engage issues. There are different ways of engaging issues like the Shite issue. Right from when we started hearing of this issue, the confrontation with the military, many of them were killed and all that. The government, you see, there's what we call dialogue and there's what we call a constructive engagement. The twisting stance of the government does not all the time generate the kind of reaction that is to be expected.
Okay.
I think that the twisting stand of the present government should be looked again at thoroughly, because the Shite issue could have been better managed. I felt it could have been better managed if they had employed other modes of engagement, not the way they did it. Now the man has become more popular, the man has gained ground, the man has gained sympathy for his cause. And even if you look at the cause, it's not even a bad one. It's also under freedom of
association
and worship.
Yeah.
The man is saying, allow me to express myself. And you are saying, no. So,
in expressing yourself,
yes,
are you infringe on other people's rights?
How?
I mean, for example, there's been allegations. Yes, there's been allegations of several times where their procession or their walk from Kaduna to Kano, yes, and then the road is closed for days. Yes. People can go to shop, people can go to office, people can go to business.
There are ways of engaging that kind of action.
Okay.
There are ways of dealing with that kind of action. You do not bring an AK-47 and start shooting people for that kind of action.
Okay.
I mean, that is the reaction to that is higher than what
the action that they've committed.
You understand?
Okay.
So the government should re-strategize, employ a different mode in engaging this, because whether you like it or not, people we have issue of herdsmen.
Yeah.
Boko Haram is not totally short.
Yeah.
And people, different.
We don't want another military group. All right.
So you have to employ a mode that will be good for that particular action.